All right, so let's take up our answers here. All right, Nathan, can you read your answer for us, please?
Jimmy was about to start his night shift at a train station until he got a phone call. He was confused because normally people wouldn't call him at this time of the day. However, this better be serious, so he answered. This call was very mysterious because it was Jimmy's voice speaking from the phone. The voice was very congruent to him, so he listened closely. It warned him about an explosion threat. However, he thinks that's some kind of scammer, and he wasn't that easy to be defrauded. Just then, a train nearby suddenly was falling off the rails, and the train blew up mysteriously, blacking out Jimmy.
All right, nicely done. So great use of the vocab words here. I do want to edit a little bit of one of those words. So let's proofread this from the beginning. So Jimmy was about to start his night shift at a train station until he got a phone call. He was confused because normally people wouldn't call him at this time of day. However, this better be serious, so he answered. So here, this phrase, this better be serious, we can rephrase this a little bit. So this phrasing right here is typically something that is like an inner dialogue that our character is saying, but we didn't specify that. So let's change up the wording a little bit. Let's say, however, he figured that uh, this was serious. He figured that this was serious, so he answered. This call was very mysterious because it was Jimmy's voice speaking from the phone. The voice was very congruent to him, so he listened closely. So this is the one that I thought we can change up a little bit. The voice was very congruent to him. Congruent meaning something that is coinciding, going hand in hand, going aligned, um, something that's very, it's going the same path. That's essentially what it means. So it doesn't always mean it's similar. So if you're saying two things are similar to one another, you can't always say that it is congruent, but you can say that the path they are taking, though the trajectory of it is congruent. So let's see if we can change this up a little bit. The voice, um, let's see. The voice is very congruent to him. I guess we can say the way that they're speaking was congruent. So the cadence um, was very congruent to his own speech. So this might solve our problems here. Oops. Okay. Very congruent to his own speech. All right. So he listened closely. It warned him about an explosion threat. Um, explosion threat. Yeah, sounds all right. We can say threat of explosion, but yeah, this is not bad. However, he thinks that it's some kind of scammer, and he wasn't that easily to be defrauded. And he wasn't, uh, we can say he wasn't that easy to defraud, or he wasn't about to be defrauded that easily. Um, yeah, let's just do the first one. He wasn't that easy to defraud. Just then, a train nearby suddenly was falling off the rails, and train blew up mysteriously, blacking out Jimmy. So I don't want to say train. We got train up here once. We're using the same subject again, but we're saying train again. So we don't actually have to say train. We can just say it. Just because it sounds a little repetitive saying train twice back to back. Just then, a train nearby suddenly was falling off the rails. Okay, yeah, sounds all right. And it blew up mysteriously, blacking out Jimmy. All right, so just a few phrases here and there just to make the overall passage a little smoother to read. But great use of both words. The definition of both words is correct. A little bit of phrasing to change up, but not a big deal. Nicely done, Nathan. So we got a couple more answers here. That's great. Let me post these on the screen. All right, Melinda, can you read your answer for us, please?
The phone rang as the character answered, puzzled. Hello, they asked, expecting it to be a wrong number, but the voice on the other end was urgent, strangely familiar. Don't sign the contract. The further south won't. They will defraud you. The character froze. What do you mean? It feels congruent with what I want.
All right, so very creative to use a lot of dialogue in your answer. We don't really see that too often, so it's a nice change of pace. And a good job using both words. So the phone rang and the character answered puzzled. So just for the sake of having a storytelling, we can swap out the character for an actual name. We can provide some backstory to our character. But just for next time, for reference, try to add a little bit of storytelling to your story. Hello, they asked, expecting it to be a wrong number, but the voice on the other end was urgent, strangely familiar. The voice on the other end, we can say sounded urgent. And instead of a comma, we can say, and was strangely familiar. Don't sign that contract. The future self warned. They will defraud you. Yep, nicely done. Defraud makes sense. The character froze. What do you mean? It feels congruent with what I want. Excellent. So congruent right here makes total sense. It feels aligned with what I want. The only thing I'll change about your story is just to add a little bit more like context. So like who is this character? What is their name? What are they about? What are they doing? And what is this contract about? It feels aligned with what I want. What do they want? Just a little bit of detail here and there. Overall, though, excellent answer. George, can you read your answer for us, please?
Yeah, as the phone rang, the number thing on the screen was on he didn't recognize, but something about it felt familiar. When she wore her stopped, it was her own voice, but older, with urgency. Don't do it, the voice please. Almost a whisper. The decision you're about to make will destroy everything. Your career, your relationships, your peace. Trust me, you can undo this. Truthful. The way of her future self was setting heavily in her chest, leaving her unsure whether to trust the wise or question her sanity.
All right. Excellent job. So very much filled with suspense in this answer here, so that's impressive. So what are our words? Defraud and congruence. I don't know if I see the words in our passage here. So let's just read this through. As the phone rang, the number flashing on the screen was one she didn't recognize, but something about it felt familiar. When she answered, her heart stopped. It was her own voice, but older, weathered, with urgency. Don't do it, the voice pleaded, almost a whisper. The decision you're about to make will destroy everything, your career, relationships, your peace. Trust me, you can't undo this. She froze, the weight of her future self's words settling heavily in her chest. All right, yeah, so we are missing our vocab words. So overall, very solid story, but we didn't get any of the vocab words. So note, missing both of the vocab words.
Oh, okay, I forget to use vocab. My bad.
Yes, no
Thank you very
problem.
much. Yeah.
We do have another answer here, so let's post this. Let's also try to get these answers a little bit sooner. But let's take this up. Jason, can you read your answer?
Okay. A sudden call from a stranger interrupted me as I was lying on my bed and immersed in my favorite video game. I was too angry to answer the phone call, therefore I hung up the phone immediately. However, the call from the stranger was like waves. It continued to call. I realized that something emergency happened on the side of the stranger, so I quickly answered it. Nevertheless, it was a strange conversation for the man's voice and all the things that he said was congruent with me. What he said to me was even more weird. I was going to make a decision that I will be default. I hesitated for a moment, desiring to talk to him, but the call was over and I can't call back.
All right. Excellent answer here. Very creative and very much uh, well written and deep. Let's see. So I do think. Oh yeah. Okay. We've got both words. I was just looking for defraud. So we got defraud and congruent. Excellent job. Let's proofread this to see if we use them correctly. So the first correction here is a little typo. Sudden with two D's. A sudden call from a stranger interrupted. Another minor spelling mistake. Interrupted me as I was laying in bed. Sorry, as I was laying on my bed and immersed in my favorite video game. I was too angry to answer the phone, therefore I hung up the phone immediately. Yeah, alright, makes sense. However, the call from the stranger was like waves that continued to call. So let's change the phrasing. I like the description that you're providing here. It's very nice, but I want to change it up a little bit. Let's say, however, the calls from the stranger were coming in like waves. The calls, make this plural, from the stranger were coming in like waves. As it continued to call, as it, let's say, continuously called. We'll cross this out and cross this out. All right, so however the calls from the stranger were coming in like waves as it continuously called, I realized that something emergency happened. Instead of saying something, let's just say I realized that an emergency happened on the side of the stranger. And side of the stranger technically makes sense, but a smoother way to say this would be stranger's side. So let's cross these three words out. On the stranger's side. So I quickly answered it. Nevertheless, it was a strange conversation. So we're using strange a lot. We're either saying strange or stranger. Let's just use a synonym here. We'll say bizarre. It was a bizarre conversation for the man's voice and all the things that he had said. Should be were congruent with me. So I don't want to simply say me. We want to add a little bit of description to make it make sense. We want to say what specifically about you. So I'm going to say it was congruent with my likeness. Your likeness means essentially who you are. Kind of like saying your personality. What he said to me was even more weird. We don't typically say more weird. It's like saying more big. Instead of saying more big, you'd say bigger. And instead of saying more weird, we say weirder. And we just need 2 lines here. All right. I was going to make a decision that I will be defraud. I was going to make a decision that will defraud me. I hesitated for a moment, desiring to talk to him, but the call was over and I can't call back. All right. So a lot of corrections here and there just to make things make sense, to add better flow. But overall, your context, the meaning of what you're writing makes perfect sense to me. Just some of the phrasing needs to change. So it's not 1 or 2 things, it's a lot. So let's try to reread our answers in our head just to see if it sounds good on our own and then submit it. We do have one more answer. All right. Again, try to get these answers in sooner. Amy, can you read your answer, please?
On a mountain full of trees, there was a dusty apartment that Lily was going to live. Lily went to clean up the dusty room, but just then a phone call made her stop what she was doing. She looked at the phone and surprisingly found that the number was the same as hers. Curious, she answered the phone and a mysterious voice that seemed familiar to her came out from the phone. Somebody is going to defraud your money. I don't know if you will believe me or not, but this is the most that I could do. You have 1 hour to think. Then Lily's phone blacked out. Lily got a strange feeling that the voice in the phone was congruent to herself. Suddenly, she blacked out, not remembering what had happened.
All right. Excellent answer here. Great job of incorporating both the vocab words. They both look good to me. I do want to change the phrasing a little bit. So let's proofread this. On a mountain full of trees, there was a dusty apartment that Lily was going to live. And there was a dusty apartment, let's say, in which Lily was going to live. Lily went to clean up the dusty room, but just then a phone call made her stop what she was doing. She looked at her phone, and as you're reading, you said surprisingly, so I'll make that change. And surprisingly found that the number was the same as hers. Curious, she answered the phone, and a mysterious voice that seemed familiar to her came out from the phone. Yeah, makes sense. Somebody is going to defraud your money. So that's what I want to change. They're not defrauding your money. They're not lying or deceiving your money. They're deceiving you in order to get your money. So we can say somebody is going to defraud you for your money. Oops, okay. I don't know if you will believe me or not, but this is the most that I can do. You have 1 hour to think. Then Lily's phone blacked out. Lily got a strange feeling that the voice in her phone was congruent to herself. Suddenly, she blacked out, not remembering what happened. Excellent answer. Very minor corrections here and there. Yeah, very solid answer. Nicely done. Let's just try to submit it a little sooner. So we got all of our answers in. That's great. Let's move on to our short story. Here is our first slide. Let's see. Let's go with Nathan. Nathan, can you read this slide?
The town of Aldenridge was famous for its timeless clocks. Every corner shop displayed ornate creations of polished brass and stained glass, each ticking with precision. At the heart of the town was Master Horace's workshop, a dimly lit space crammed with gears, pendulums, and the smell of machine oil. Horace was a genius, crafting clocks so precise they would measure the heartbeat of a bird. Beside him was beside him worked Elias, a quiet apprentice who spent years mastering the craft. Through his hands Through his hands trembled when he touched the delicate components. Horace often reminded Elias, a clockmaker must conquer time, not be conquered by it.
All right. Let's move on. The next slide. Let's go with Halstead. Can you read this slide, please?
Okay, one evening, Holmes handed Elias a peculiar clock to repair. Its face was cracked and its hands seemed frozen in place. The mechanism inside was unfamiliar. The gears made of silvery metal Elias has never seen before. This is no ordinary clock, Porter said, his tone unusually serious. It was brought here by a traveler who claimed it measures not time, but memories. Be careful, it's not just a machine. Elias, skeptical but intrigued, worked late into the night, the silvery gears reflecting candlelight as they spun under his tools. Elias tinkered, the clock began to emit a faint hum. His surroundings seemed to blur, and the sound of ticking filled his ears growing louder with each passing moment. Suddenly, the room vanished, replaced by a vivid scene from his childhood. A warm summer day at the river. His mother calling him home for supper. He could smell the freshly baked bread, hear the rustle of leaves, and feel the cool water on his feet. He blinked and the scene dissolved, leaving him back into the workshop, his hand trembling more than ever.
All right. Nicely done. So I do want to point out one correction here. So we have one of our characters, their name, capital E. I've heard you guys mispronounce it a couple times. It's pronounced Elias. So just for future reference, this character's name is Elias. All right, next slide here. Yeah, this slide. Let's go with Melinda. Can you read this slide, please?
When Horace returned the next morning, Elias tried to explain what had happened. The master only nodded knowingly and said, "You've glimpsed its power, but you must not linger in the past. Memories are seductive, Elias, but they are not reality." Determined to master the clock, Elias worked tireless, experiencing from his past each time the clock came to life. Some were joyous, like his first successor clock repaired, while others were painful, like the days his father left and never returned. The clock seemed to grow heavier with each memory, as if it absorbed the weight of its emotion. One day, Elias noticed a strange change in the clock. The silvery gears, once precious, were tarnished and sluggish. He realized that the more he delved into his past, that more the clock decayed. Panic set in. He had damaged it beyond repair. Horace's warning echoed in his mind. Do not linger. Elias decided to stop using the clock, but it was too late. That night he dreamt of his father's face, and when he awoke, the clock was gone.
All right, great job. And the second last slide, let's go with George. Can you read this slide? George, whenever you're ready, you can read this slide.
Yeah, his parrot finds the workshop, but the clock was unknown to be found. Instead, he found a note in her writing. You must learn to let go, time move forward, not backward, faster and good reading. And he couldn't stop thinking about the clock and its mysterious power. He wondered if it had been be test a lesson from history, from Horace, or something more sinister. Uh, Years passed and it is become a master cloud mark in his own right. His work was celebrated across elaborate, but he never forgot the sewing clock. He often found himself lost in sound, wondering whether it had been real or just a figment of his imagination. Yeah, yet he never mentioned it to anyone, not even his apprentices, fearing they might seek it out and fall into the same trap.
All right, excellent job. And one last paragraph here. Jason, can you read this paragraph?
In his later years, Elias crafted a masterpiece, a clock so perfect it was said to predict the future. But when asked about his greatest work, he always hesitated. The greatest clocks, he would say, are the ones that teach us to value the present. And though his hands no longer trembled, the memory of the silvery clock and its lessons lingered, like a faint, unending hum.
All right, awesome. So that's the end of our short story here. Now let's check out a couple of multiple choice questions. The first one says, what does the silvery clock represent in this story? So a little bit of symbolism here. What does this clock represent? All right, so we got a mix of answers. So let's check out a few of these and let's cross out which ones don't look too good. So option A, the perfection of craftsmanship. Option B, the inevitability of time. C, the allure and danger of dwelling in the past. D, the relationship between master and apprentice. So right off the bat, the relationship between the master and apprentice is definitely not that relevant, especially as it relates to the clock. And I would also say that craftsmanship is not really the main focus here. So B and C seem to be the most accurate, the most relevant, I mean. They are talking about time, but they are talking about not the inevitability, not that time will pass. It is that time has passed and don't dwell on it. So it is talking about the danger of dwelling in the past. So option C is correct. Next question. Why does Horace warn Elias not to linger in memories? So now we know it's bad to linger in the past, but why is it bad? All right, so I got one answer so far. Let's see if I can get some more. Okay, so we got a couple answers. Well done. So again, got a little bit of a mix. We're looking at B and C. So B says, well, Sid, can you please mute? There seems to be an echo. Thank you. So memories can prevent someone from living in the present, and memories reveal painful truths about reality. Both of these are very much relevant. I believe this one is most relevant because of what our previous question said. The danger of dwelling in the past means preventing someone from living in the present. They both kind of go hand in hand. All right, moving on. What does Elias's final masterpiece symbolize? Another symbolism related question. All right, so I got one answer so far. All right, great. So we are all on the same page here. We're looking at option B, absolutely correct. His mastery symbolizes his mastery of clockmaking without relying on the past. Perfect. And the last multiple choice, why does Elias hesitate to discuss the silvery clock with others? So we got one answer here. All right, we got two answers. That's great. And you guys are correct. Option C. So he doesn't want others to repeat his mistakes. Excellent job. Yeah, not too bad. Let's move on. We've got our long answer questions now. Discuss the theme of time in the story. How does the silvery clock challenge Elias's understanding of time? And what lesson does he ultimately learn? So this question has a few different topics that you have to answer. First is explain this theme. So it simply says theme of time. Try to break this down. Try to explain further what is this theme. And then talk about how the silvery clock is related to it. How does it challenge Elias's understanding of time? And what does he learn? So I'll give you guys a few minutes to write your answer. Try to aim for around 4 to 6 sentences. And while you guys begin writing, I am going to post the story in the chat. So you can check out the story as I send it. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right, so I got one answer here so far. Let's try to submit some more answers in the next minute or so, and then I will take them. All right, so let's take up this answer. All right, Nathan, can you read your answer for us, please?
Oh, Elias. Elias faced a challenge with the silvery clock, resulting in the theme that you cannot change anything from the past. For example, ever since El- Elias was assigned to fix a very unique clock from Horus, uh oh, this clock allows people to see in the past. This was a challenge for Elias because it became an addiction. Plus, this just decays the clock. That happened to Elias, and at one point the clock disappeared. He then received a note from Horus, informing him that time moves forward, not backwards. The main message here is that Elias should focus more in the present than the past. That was the lesson he learned. Overall, Elias went through the challenge of the silvery clock and learning the important theme of ignoring the past.
All right, excellent answer here, very thorough. And I believe you got it spot on, especially with the ending of your paragraph. You mentioned the lesson that he learned, which is exactly correct. So let's proofread this real quick. Elias faced a challenge with the silvery clock, resulting in the theme that you cannot change anything from the past. Nicely done. So not change anything from the past and don't dwell on the past. Those are both acceptable themes for this story. Nathan, you're saying you forgot to finish a sentence?
Yeah, it was the second one. Yeah.
The second sentence,
Yeah, but
for
we can
example.
do it. Yeah, we can do it together.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were reading it, this sounded from this sentence and this sentence, you can just squish them together, they'll make perfect sense. So yeah, that's exactly what we'll do. For example, ever since Elias was assigned to fix a very unique clock from Horus, this clock allows people to see in the past. This was a challenge for Elias because it became an addiction. Plus, this just decays the clock. that happened to Elias and at one point the clock disappeared. He then received a note from Horace informing him that time moves forward, not backwards. All right. So even though it's good to add detail to explain our message, let's try to summarize our detail a little bit. It did take a little too long to break down what happened in the novel, or not the novel, the story. So we can just, for next time, summarize this to maybe 1 or 2 points. We don't have to retell the story, just, briefly describe the main thing that you want to talk about. Moving on, though, the main message here is that Elias should focus more in the present than the past. Perfect. Excellent answer. That was the lesson he learned. This sentence is not really adding much here. Let's see. Let's probably just phrase it as the main lesson that Elias learned here is that he should focus more on the present. And we'll cross this out. We'll cross this out. The main lesson that Elias learned here is that he should focus more on the present than the past. So this whole sentence can get crossed out. Overall, Elias went through the challenge of the silvery clock and learning the important theme of ignoring the past. Nicely done. Probably not ignoring the past, but not dwelling in the past. All right, excellent answer. We got a couple more answers in the chat. Let's check these out as well. All right, Jason, can you read your answer for us, please?
Everyone has their own experience, whether it is joyful or not. However, instead of considering the past, we need to focus on the present and look towards the future. The past times are all over and we can't do anything about it, but we can treat ourselves better at the present. So why not pay attention to the present and future? For instance, Elias has always immersed in the memory of his past due to the clock. When it vanished, he began to consider time again. He finally knew the meaning, significance of time. It is not the past that values, but the present that was truly valuable.
All right, excellent. And a very strong way to close your answer as well with this message here. It's not the past that values, but the present that was truly valuable. Great job. Let's proofread this. So everyone has their own experience, whether it is joyful or not. However, instead of considering the past, we need to focus on the present and look forward to the future. All right. So I do want to rephrase this a little bit because it sounds kind of vague. Let's change the experience to memory, because here we want to focus on past memories, not just any experience, but mostly the past memories that we are kind of reliving. So let's cross out experience. Everyone has their own memories, whether it is joyful or not. However, instead of living in the past, we need to focus on the present and look forward to the future. The past times are all over and we can't do anything about it, but we can change ourselves better at the present. So why not pay attention to the present and future? For instance, Elias has once immersed in the memory of his past due to the clock. For instance, and instead of saying has, I think it simply just needs to change to was. When it vanished, he began to consider time again. He finally knew the meaning, significance of time. Let's just Take out the comma, replace that with the word and. It is not the past that values. Let's say that holds value. But the present that was truly valuable. All right, excellent answer right here, and great way to close off. Amy, can you read your answer for us, please?
The silvery clock challenges Elias's understanding of time because he could not linger in the past. The silvery clock teaches him that memories isn't worth to linger with. His own masterpiece teaches everybody that thinking about the future is no use either. This is just as he said. The greatest clocks are the ones that teaches us to value the present.
Excellent. Again, very strong way to close your paragraph here with a concise, direct meaning, direct message. Very well worded as well. Let's check out the proofreading here. The silvery clock challenges Elias's understanding of time because he cannot linger in the past. So a little spelling mistake here. Whoops. Silvery. All right, the silvery clock teaches him that memories aren't worth, so it's plural, aren't worth to linger with. Instead of saying linger with, I think linger on would make more sense. His own masterpiece, this should be one word. Teaches everybody that thinking about the future is no use either. This is just as he said, the greatest clocks are the ones that teaches us to value the present. Perfect. And that hyphen just has to be much smaller. But yeah, excellent answer right here. And very nicely done to everyone who submitted. Looks like we all were pretty bang on with our answers. Let's just skip that second question. I want to jump over to our lesson plan. So we've been talking about atmosphere for a little while now. So we do have a good gist of how to establish atmosphere and how to analyze it, how to identify it. So in this passage here, which is what we started last week, we were able to explain why this passage is not effectively creating atmosphere. Whether you remember your points or not, doesn't really matter too much, as long as we understand in general that this is not the strongest example of atmosphere. Your task now is to take this example and rewrite it, make it a strong example of creating atmosphere. So you guys kind of have to do two things. You have to check out what is not good about this passage and then improve it. So I'll give you all 2 minutes to write up your answer. Let's try to aim for like somewhere around 5 to 6 sentences. Whatever atmosphere you're getting from this passage, keep it. Just try to make it stronger. So don't change it. Don't, do a 180 on this. Don't talk about something completely random. Make sure you're still talking about the same topic. Just make it stronger. I'll give you all around 7-ish minutes to complete. If you have any questions, please let me know. All right, so we got a few answers all coming in at once. Excellent job. Let's take these up. Let me just clear this. Boom. All right, Jason, can you read your answer for us, please?
The thunder was roaring like a monster, the sky was raining cats and dogs, and the lightning was like a sword that cut the dark night into two. I want to change parts into half because I don't know why I can't change it.
Wait, can you repeat that again? Sorry, what did you say?
I want to change two parts into half.
Into half. Okay, sure. No problem. I'll just cross that out.
Okay, thank you.
Into half. Sure.
Sarah walked slowly out of his house. It was dark with some noises. She was too scared to walk inside. However, the water rained her from top to down. She has no choice. She had no choices but to go inside the house.
All right. A very solid answer right here. A lot of description, a lot of visual, or not even visual, but sensory detail. So we have thunder was roaring, the sky was raining, so we can kind of feel the rain on us. Visually, a lot of information. So great job there. Let's proofread this a little bit. The thunder was roaring like a monster, and the sky was raining cats and dogs. And the lightning was like a sword that cut the dark night into half. I really like this last one. This last description is excellent, very visual. I do want to split this up to two sentences, though. It does seem like a lot of information. So the thunder was roaring like a monster, and we can say as the sky was raining cats and dogs. We'll put a period right there, and then we can say cross these two out. Make this red. I forgot to make this red as well. The lightning was like a sword that cut the dark night into half. And instead of saying into half, we can just say cut it in half. Sarah walked slowly out of his house, so we can say her house. It was dark. Sarah walked slowly out of her house. It was dark with some noises. She was too scared to walk inside. It was dark with some noises. So let's try to add some description as to what these noises are. I guess we can say because of the roaring thunder, we can say there were booming noises. She was too scared. Gotta put the D at the end. To walk inside, I think because it's raining and it's booming outside, maybe she's too scared to walk outside. However, the water rained her from top to bottom. She has no choice but to go inside the house. The water rained her from top to bottom. Maybe you could say the rain soaked her from top to bottom. Oops. He had no choice. Choice should be singular, but to go inside the house. All right. Excellent job here. So nicely done to add description. The sense of atmosphere is kind of action-packed here because of the violent raining, the roaring thunder adds a lot of action. So if you're going for that, that's great. let's move on. We got another answer. We got plenty of answers. So, Nathan, can you read your answer for us, please?
In the dark, treacherous night stands a dreadful house. The screeches like hitting the brakes on a car makes the scene eerie than ever. However, Sarah reluctantly entered the spooky abandoned building. The doors screamed as she walked inside. The lightning sliced through the windows, thundering over the premises. The room was lit up for a second. Sarah, traumatized, desperately trying to escape. However, seconds turned into hours, and she was left with no choice.
All right, nicely done. So, excellent job, actually. This is from top to bottom, you've successfully established a very eerie and gloomy type of atmosphere. Very well done. Great job with the descriptions as well. So in the dark, treacherous night stands a dreadful house. The screeches. But here I want to add commas. The screeches like hitting the brakes on a car. All right. Makes the scene eerie than ever. Eerier than ever. Oh, this is not even a word. I guess not. Makes the scene, I guess we can just say scarier. Let's see. However, Sarah reluctantly entered the spooky abandoned building. The doors screamed as she walked inside. The lightning sliced through the windows, thundering over the premises. The room was lit up for a second. Sarah, traumatized, desperately trying to escape. So we are in the past tense. I want to change trying to tried. Desperately tried to escape. However, seconds turned into hours and she was left with no choice. Excellent. Very solid answer right here. And I really like this part. Seconds turned into hours, adding a sense of time to really show the suspense in our story. Excellent job. Let's see, we got a few more answers. All right, Halstead, can you read your answer for us, please?
Okay, it was Okay, it was a dark and stormy night. The building next door was mysterious, and the sound that was erupting from the building was making it horrifying. Sarah walked towards the building. I'm using the character that's mentioned in like the small passage.
Mm-hmm.
Her heart pounding like crazy, entering quietly. The floorboards creaked, and the wind was entering the building through the cracks. All of a sudden, lightning struck outside the door. There was a flash of light, and the dim room lit up for a second. Sarah stood there reluctantly. She dreaded the thought of exploring the building. However, the door behind her shut quickly. She was trapped inside of the horrifying building.
All right, nicely done. So again, very well done with the pacing of your story, as well as the ending of the story where everything kind of, shows that she's isolated, she's scared, and then bam, she's trapped. I do want to make one change, or not really a change, but just a note. When we're trying to add description, let's try not to explicitly say this was scary, this was horrifying, this was mysterious. Let's try to show it through some action or through some descriptions instead. So that's what was going on in the first couple of sentences here. It was a dark and stormy night. The building next door was mysterious. This, we can try to add a bit of description to explain it. Was mysterious is kind of just explicitly saying that it was mysterious. And the sound that was erupting from the building was making it horrifying. Again, same thing, making it horrifying. Sarah walked towards the building, her heart pounding like crazy, entering quietly. Now, this is a great way to add description. Using this action and emotion, her heart pounding like crazy. Excellent job there. The floorboards creaked, and wind was entering the building through the cracked windows. All of a sudden, lightning struck outside the door. There was a flash of light, and the dim room lit up for a second. Sarah stood there reluctantly. She dreaded the thought of exploring the building. However, door shut. The door behind her shut quickly. She was trapped inside of the horrifying building. Excellent. I don't really see any changes I can make. No proofreading edit. Just the first sentence or so. Try not to be so obvious with your descriptions. Overall, very well done. George, can you read your answer for us, please?
Yeah. The storm outside. Light flashing through the cracked window threats her wrist and she stabbed inside. The floorboards creaking under her weight. The halls filled a little with every gust of wind and distant sound. The clap its dark current beat, hiding more than she could bear to imagine. She shouted. Now she had no choice but to see.
All right, nicely done. So a little bit briefer than the other answers, but not a big issue. Effectively communicated the atmosphere though. Nicely done. I don't really see any errors that I can change. I do know that there is an underline right here, but it makes sense to say it without the apostrophe. Yeah, solid answer. We do have one more answer that I want to take up before we leave. All right, Amy, can you read your answer, please?
It was a stormy night. Lightning streaked over the sky. You could just see a shabby wooden cottage standing alone on a big piece of rock inside the dark blue sea. Sarah was shaking as she walked inside the rain. Walked inside. 句号. The rain washed. Walked inside the rain-washed cottage. She was cold and hungry because she hadn't eaten for nearly a day. Suddenly, a bright ray of light shone into the room and made the room detailed to Sarah for a second. She looked up at the sky and found that there was no light coming from the moon or stars. It was pitch dark outside the cottage. Even though she wanted to escape the place immediately, she knew that she was trapped in it.
All right, nicely done. Great job with establishing visual details to give us a sense of atmosphere, definitely in terms of light and dark. Let's proofread this. So it was a stormy night. Lightning streaked over the sky. You could just see a shabby wooden cottage stood alone on the big piece of rock inside the dark blue sea. All right, so a lot of information in the second sentence here. I would like to break it up a little bit. Let's take this lightning sentence and move it to the previous sentence by adding a comma. And let me just change that proofreading mistake. All right, and this is going to be a period. This is going to be capital. All right, you could just see a shabby wooden cottage. So when we have multiple descriptions, we separate it with a comma. Stood alone on the big piece of rock inside the dark blue sea. Yeah, I think this needs a comma as well. Sarah was shaking as she walked inside the rain-washed cottage. She was cold and hungry because she haven't should be the correct verb here. Hasn't eaten for nearly a day. Suddenly, a bright ray of light shone into the room and made the room detailed to Sarah for a second. She looked up at the sky and found that there was no light coming from the moon or the stars. It was pitch dark outside the cottage. Even though she went, I guess right here we can put this as a period. And this can be our next sentence. Even though she wanted to escape this place immediately, she knew that she was trapped in it. Excellent. Very well done. So great job to everybody for using descriptions and visual details to establish atmosphere. We've got one more slightly different exercise that we're going to work on next week. For today, though, Very well done, as always. I'll see you all next week. Take care.
Bye. See you.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.